Hi everyone, welcome to They Had Fun. I'm Rachel and I am back with another amazing story about New York City. And I can officially let you in on my plan for our upcoming 6th season. Now, as you know, we only have one episode left in this 5th season. We will be coming back for the 6th. And I have been cooking up a little something. We are going to have a theme for the 6th season. Now, of course, the theme is always going to be fun. It is always going to be about New York. But for this upcoming season, I am going to have guests that have only moved to New York City in the last 2 years. So I know what you're thinking. You're probably thinking, Rachel, all you ever talk about is how it's the biggest win for you to get a native New Yorker. You love having people on the show that were born and raised here. And I do. All of that is still true. We will still have all sorts of people like that in the 7th season. Yes, I'm already plotting that out. So don't worry, we're not going anywhere. And let's be frank, why am I doing this? I think the number one answer, like any good New Yorker who is stubborn, I'm doing it out of spite. So that's just the truth, guys. I'm going to come at you with the truth. I have been so annoyed by everyone. You know, it's gone on for years, but it's been particularly prevalent recently of people saying, oh, do young people still move to New York these days? I mean, can you even pursue a creative endeavor like you used to be able to, this New York is dead, blah, blah, blah. The rents are too high, and the rent is too damn high, and it is so fucking expensive, and it is hard to live here. But I stand firmly in the belief that yes, these people are still coming here and they're still working 3 jobs and they're still working on their art or putting together shows that are a matinee that's going to happen at TVI that someone's going to come to. And I am excited about these people and I think they deserve to be heard too. And I want to prove everyone wrong who keeps saying that this is not happening, because it is. So I hope you guys will be excited for that one. I think it's going to be great, or it could be wrong and I could get like 5 in and be like, whoops, that was a terrible idea, but it should be good. And this leads me into my next point, which is if you happen to know anyone who has moved here in the last 2 years, I would love you to put me in connection with them because I need to find these people and I want to hear their stories. Bonus points if they're looking for a creative endeavor, but obviously any age, any interest, if you had the dream of moving to New York, if you made it a reality on your own, I want to hear your stories. What's the fun you've been having? You can email me at theyhadfun@gmail.com. You can DM me on Instagram. You can do whatever you want, but I am so stoked for the 6th season. And I think it's gonna, teach us something new, open our eyes in a new way. At the very least, I'm going to be able to shove it in a bunch of people's faces. And that is the ultimate New Yorker move. Okay, don't forget about our season 5 finale party next Wednesday. I'll talk about that on next week's podcast, but let's go ahead and get into my Rachel's Recs for this week. Now, once again, I got a request for happy hours and I get very excited about these because I don't know if we've talked about this, but I'm like a happy hour fiend. I know I focused in on them for budget month, but I have an entire Google map dedicated just to happy hours in New York City. If someone was like, oh, you should share that. I was like, honestly, I've put so much work into it. There should be like a paywall for the damn happy hour map, but I love them. You guys have heard me talk a lot about Decades, Le Crocodile, and Williamsburg. There's a bunch of them that I love to go to, but I thought, why don't I just talk about my absolute go-to? Now, Taralucci is somewhere that I go multiple times a month. And I'm going to tell you the reasons why this is a great happy hour. But coming in at number 1 is location, location, location. And this is no discredit to Taralucci. They do a great job of a bunch of other things. They have a couple of spots, but the one I'm recommending is on 18th Street between Broadway and 5th Avenue. And why is this such a good location? Because your friend who works in Midtown, who's taking the Q down to Park Slope, can jump off at Union Square and come meet you for a drink. Your friend who lives in Williamsburg and is working from home but wants to get out of the house can jump on the L a couple of stops and come meet you for a drink. You and your coworker at a shared space. And Chelsea, guess what? You can walk to 18th Street. It's just going to take you a couple of avenues. It is such a good spot. I inevitably find myself there when one of my friends who works in Flatiron or anyone is in the city. It seems to be a good gathering point. Now, on top of all of that, this happy hour goes daily. So we're talking the weekends too. It's 4 to 7. They have such a cute little bar area. My favorite spot is, of course, the little creeper window at the front. Do people know what a creeper window is? Or is that, that is like what my friends and I call a window that's at the front of a bar or restaurant where you get to look out and look at everyone on the street and be a creeper. So we call them a creeper window, but that's my favorite spot in there. They've got wine for $10. They've got beer. They've got a bunch of little snacky things. It is just such a good go-to spot. I am there all the time. If you're looking for fancy cocktails, this isn't really it. You know, I've given you those in the past. This is just my good go-to. Taralucci, 18th Street. Go check it out if you're in the need of a great location to meet your friends. Number 2, this one's going to be for me. I went to a bunch of gallery openings in Chelsea last week. I just love when that happens, when all of the galleries do their openings on the same night and the streets in Chelsea are so crowded and it was cold and everybody was still out and everyone's bopping from one to the other. And thank God they have brought back the free drinks. That's one of the best parts too. But there was a lot of great art to see. I think I made it to about 8 galleries, but one that really stuck out to me was the show at Praxis on West 20th at the corner of 10th. It's called Bad Posture. Now, the artist, I don't want to not give her credit here, but her name is Luciana Pincherio. So there you have it, but we're going to call it Bad Posture from here on out. This show is so wonderful. It's kind of playing on this thing between the body and the use of sculpture and the female body, female gaze a little bit. You get all of that. It's got these wonderful tones of like Roman and Greek colors and sculpture, and it takes over the room in such a great way. There's photography mixed with 3 large sculptures in the center of the room. It was just, I don't know, I'm not doing the best job. We've talked about this before. I don't have an art history degree, but I absolutely loved the show. It was the best one I saw of the night. So if you happen to be in Chelsea, or like you guys are always asking for, something to do that doesn't involve drinking, stop by Praxis, go to a few other galleries, go see Bad Posture. I think you will love it. Okay, enough of all of the business up at the front. Let's go ahead and get into my guest for today. As expected, I am coming at you with another New Yorker who has an incredible list of talents from their resume. So let's go ahead and get started at the top. First of all, she has a regular day job where she works in digital experience for a large healthcare company. We're just going to leave it at that. She also happens to be the founder and voice behind a podcast that also has turned into an events company. We're going to get into all of those things. That is, of course, Drinks First. Please welcome to the show, Ariana Nathani.
Wow, thank you so much for that incredible introduction. I feel like I'm at a sports game where they're like, next up. That was amazing.
Coming to the play, Ariana. I really think, and this is what I want to talk about with having you on, is your resume stands on its own here, Ariana. Like, I was looking at your website leading up to this interview, and I'm like, clicking on links and seeing where you went to school and seeing where you worked and seeing, for God's sakes, a media kit. I'm like, why don't I have a media kit? What is a media kit? And you're like doing all of this. We'll get into a little bit about your history and your age, but at like such a young age. What is it? What is the drive? What has made you like just be so amazingly talented at all of this?
Oh my God. That's so kind. I don't know, like immigrant trauma. Like I have like Asian parents, so that probably has a lot to do with it.
Okay, fair.
I don't think they would necessarily call me like an overachiever in any way. Like there's always more to be done.
They should be very proud of you, and you are doing a lot. And of course, as New Yorkers, we tend to do this to ourselves. Oh, I'm not really doing that much. I just happen to be getting sommelier certificate on the weekends, and I joined a cycling group, and I run my own business, and you have all of these things going on. But to me, as the host, I'm always so proud of all of my guests. I always think everything they're doing is inspirational. You, of course, right at the top of that list, which I think is just so interesting. And obviously the reason we connected, you started this incredible podcast called Drinks First, which if people don't know anything about it, you're having real New Yorkers on, you're talking to them, it's all anonymous, and you're learning about them, what work they do, who they're interested in meeting, all of these things, their history. And then essentially what it is, and correct me if I'm wrong, is kind of like a dating podcast. It is there for people to just learn about someone, not see their face, not have anything else, and think, would I want to date this person? Now that is spawned off into these events where all of these people are coming and meeting in person, which is something we love at They Had Fun at building that community. How did this start? Why do you keep it going? Tell us everything about it.
Yeah, I mean, you got it like right on the nose. Basically, also with the podcast, you actually can meet the guests. So if you are interested in matching with one of our guests, you can do that. There is a form for that. So that is like the whole larger concept of the podcast is we interview anonymous New Yorkers, anonymous singles, and our listeners can match with them. And basically how that started was I moved back to New York City after college, and I do not mind discussing my age at all. The fact that you are calling me very young is so kind, because every year I get older, I'm like, I am so far from like what I felt like when I was younger.
Oh my God, Ariana, get out of here. It's just showing how old I am, but no, not at all. Get out
No,
of here.
I mean, I'm 27. I started Drinks First 4.5 years ago, right when I exited college, because when I moved back to the city, I already had a lot of community because I grew up in New York City. Everybody I was talking to at the time, keep in mind, 2019, pre-COVID, was dating is so hard. Why is it so hard to meet people? Why are we ghosting? I hate dating apps. Like, there has to be a better way.
Yeah.
I think the designer in me, like the kind of problem solver, was like, okay, what about dating sucks right now? And where can we make fixes? Like, it's really hard to get a sense of a person. And I think attraction goes a lot farther than just the 2 seconds you spend looking at somebody's profile.
Totally.
And so I was like, okay, well, maybe there's a more holistic way we can do this, which is, at the time I was listening to a lot of podcasts. I was like, let's do a dating podcast and let's have people on that people could actually meet. And we started throwing events, and it was just like the perfect time, and it just took off and created this whole other arm of our business between like the podcast and then throughout COVID working on the social media that has now created the ecosystem that is Drinks First.
Wow. That's just like, that's really all I have to say. Your parents must be so proud of you. I don't think we're going to let them for a second say that you are doing a lot. And frankly, do you know what the hell I was doing when I was like right out of college? Because I wasn't moving to New York and starting media companies and like thinking about how to start a podcast. I was getting wasted in Williamsburg. I wasn't doing anything.
Trust me, I was also getting wasted in Williamsburg. I was actually doing that too much that my mom was like seeing me every day, like ending work and then just going out and drinking with my friends. And she was like, you need a hobby. And I was like, okay, you're like valid point. Like, I should try and do something else.
All jokes aside, it is very admirable. All of us are moving to New York and like having a great time when we're, just get here. And we should all be doing that. But for you to have the know-how to be like, okay, you're right. I'm going to take your advice. I'm going to do something worthwhile. I'm going to do something that has value. And it's very thoughtful to me. And maybe the community element wasn't entirely there right at the beginning and it became natural. It is so intrinsically the hustle of New Yorkers. It is so admirable. It is so fucking cool. It is something I love about the people here. If we all sat back and didn't have ideas, this wouldn't be the city that it is. And it's so deep rooted inside of you. It's going to lead us perfectly into talking about our normal questions of the show, because we've already touched on them a little bit, but I can't wait to get more in depth because it's going to explain so much more about you and this path you've created. So let's just start with the first one, which we know is going to be a little bit different, and that's wonderful. When did you move to New York?
Moved to New York in 1996 when I was born at Mount Sinai Hospital on the Upper East Side. So been here since the day that I was born. I grew up between the Upper East and Upper West Side, so I'm like an uptown Manhattan girly, and now I live in Greenwich Village.
I love that. Okay, first of all, you don't often hear about people going between East and West. I feel like people are pretty rooted in their camps of Upper East or Upper West, so that's interesting. So I'd love to hear more about that. I'd love to hear about your family maybe coming here or why they decide to stay in New York. We've talked to so many people on this show whose families choose to stay in New York when a lot of times friends or extended family are like, oh, you had kids, get out of here. Or like, it's too expensive or it's not safe or whatever it would be. Why don't you tell us a bit about your family and coming here or staying, and then a little bit about your upbringing as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So my parents immigrated to the States in the 80s. My dad came here on scholarship to business school at Duke. And so they moved to North Carolina from Mumbai, India. So very different. And he got his MBA, right? So then he went straight into finance, which then led them to New York City. And they actually lived out in Greenwich, Connecticut for like a few years. That's where they had my brother. And they hated suburban life. So they actually did the reverse move and moved from Greenwich into the Upper East Side.
I love that.
They never wanted to be suburban people. They grew up in a city. They wanted to stay in a city. And I like to say that my parents like truly lived the American dream. Like, they came from India. They didn't have that much. They made lemonade out of lemons. And they both became very successful in their own right. And so like when we first moved to New York, we were living in a 2-bedroom apartment that was like a rental on the Upper East Side. When I was around 8, my parents bought an apartment on the Upper West Side. That's why there's that like half and half.
that story is one that is so familiar and frankly crucial to the New York City experience of the immigrant experience. And whether it was someone coming in the 80s or, you know, people who I've had on whose family came like in the 20s or the 30s, the immigrant experience rings so true still to this day. And it's such like the heartbeat of New York City. And I just love to hear that your parents came with that dream and that you see the reality of it. And that also they went to Connecticut and were like, nope.
Yeah. Like, absolutely not.
Do you and your brother have like a bone of contention that you were born in New York City and he was born in Connecticut?
I don't think he likes people to know that he was born in Connecticut. So that's like some low key information, but I sometimes I pull it out. I make fun of him for it.
When needed, when needed. Okay, maybe we'll take that out if he asks for it. Okay, let's talk a little bit. I want to know a little bit about growing up. We know your parents loved it. Did you love being a city kid here? Was it something you treasured? And then follow up to that is a lot of times I talk to kids who lived in the city. And even though it seems like your oyster, a lot of the times it can seem like really nuclear where you just kind of bounce between Upper West, Upper East, Upper West. Or were you like some kid who was like jumping on the R train and like, let's go party in Coney Island? What were you like?
So it's interesting. I was very much an uptown kid. I loved the city. I still love the city. Clearly, I'm here. There's just nothing like it growing up in a place like this. I would not have given up my childhood for anything. I loved growing up in New York City. Everybody feels it. Doesn't matter what age you're at. The energy, the diversity, the creativity, that all exists. Like, even when you're a child, I started being able to take the bus and the subway, like starting when I was 12 years old. And that creates a sense of autonomy that you don't get when you grow up in the suburbs.
Totally. Yep.
My upbringing was interesting in terms of the fact that I went to public school and then I went to private school. And so I experienced like two very different bubbles of New York City. So I had exposure to kids from all different boroughs. I like went to Park Slope for the first time for trick-or-treating, and like my friends who lived in Astoria or lived in Forest Hills or a bunch of other parts of the city that I didn't have exposure to when I was younger. But I got to meet a lot of amazing kids from around the city. And then when I went to private school, I experienced a very different side of New York, which is like very privileged, very like in its own bubble, very monotonous in a way. Like there's not that much diversity in those spaces. And, you know, I became somebody that was diversity to them. It was interesting. It was like an interesting perspective to see like kind of the tale of the two cities.
Getting both elements of that makes for, I have to imagine, and I'm learning now, such a well-rounded, interesting person. You're seeing a little bit of all of the worlds of New York, and you have so many great reasons of why you love New York and all of these things in the childhood and all of that. But obviously our second question is always, why did you move to New York? And we're touching on things here and there. But for me, what's so interesting is, why do you think, amidst all of the reasons you love, what do you think the number one reason is that you moved to New York? And by that, we mean you're staying in New York and not moving out of New York.
You know, I listened to a lot of your episodes and I feel like a lot of people have the same answer, which is the people. But it's true. Like, and that's why you're doing this podcast. It's to connect with the people who are in New York. And that's what makes a place really, really special. What I think sets New York apart from a lot of other major cities, New York is incredibly diverse. So when you look at a place like Mumbai or Tokyo, other major, massive cities, I would say that New York is just the most diverse city. And that diversity, the immigrants who come, the quote unquote transplants who come to the city, people are all coming to this city with a collective mindset of like, they want to be here. They want to experience what the city has to offer. For the most part, that's a broad generalization. And the people who come here oftentimes contribute to the fabric of the city. I think that's such a beautiful thing. And that's why I would love to stay here.
Knowing you, that's such a great answer. And I think as you're talking, I'm like, hell yeah, like we're on the same page and everyone has their own reasons. And I love all of them. But you and I sitting here talking about the people, knowing the work you do, knowing why I love talking to people, we are on the same page. Let's get to my biggest question of the show, because we know you got the uptown, you got the east side, you got the west side, you got the family who left and came back, you got it all, you got friends, and you're doing a lot of great work in the city. I have to ask you the most important question of the show, and that is, of course, Ariana, what is the most fun you've ever had in New York City?
So I would say the most fun I've ever had in New York City might have been my birthday in 2022.
I'm so ready for this.
Yeah. one, I love my birthday. That should not come as a surprise to anyone. Like, I love a day that's just like focused on me. But somebody who's in nightlife with drinks first, I'm so used to going to a bar or a nightclub. So I knew I wanted to do something different. And so for my 26th birthday, I did a pizza trolley tour around Brooklyn. And this might sound familiar to some people because I made a video about it and put it on like TikTok and Instagram, and it got like millions of views.
Oh my God. No, I don't think I've seen this. Okay, we'll have to link in the show notes. Okay, sorry. Yes.
Yeah, please.
Yeah.
But it was just the best time of my life. Basically, I'm like scrolling TikTok and I see this girl who I actually know who also grew up in New York City. She's a food blogger, New York City. Her name's Ella. Shout out to Ella. She's great.
Mm-hmm.
Ella had planned a birthday party for her friend where they went on like a pizza tour on a party bus. And I was like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. I'm like a foodie at heart. And my favorite food in the world is pizza. I'm like such a New York City pizza snob.
Okay, we have a lot of discussions to have about this.
Oh, I have thoughts.
I mean, let's say who's not crazy about pizza, but yeah, we'll have pizza conversations off air.
Yeah. But basically, I had like reached out to Ella and I was like, hey, like, do you have any information on like how you did this? I'd love to know. And she basically was like, I just planned it like from scratch. This is the bus company that I used. These are the places I went. And that was about it. I knew that I didn't really want it to be like a weekend night thing just because I'm so used to parties at this point. I was like, I want to do something during the day.
Hell yeah.
So I chose a Sunday. I chose like 30 of my closest friends to come on a trolley. So like a classic New York City trolley. And I decided to do a trolley because Ella had done a party bus, but it looked really dark. And I was like, I want to do something during the day. I want to get some light in.
Yeah.
We can still play music. You could bring alcohol on the trolley. So I was like, great, let's do that. I tried reaching out to like all of these different companies and being like, I have a small following. Like, can you throw me product? Can you give me a discount? I mean, you never know unless you ask.
Yeah.
And they were like, of course, like we'll send you product. And so I was like, okay, I got the trolley. I got the alcohol. The last thing is the pizza. So I knew I wanted to do it in Brooklyn. We actually started at Polly G's.
Friend of the podcast.
Yes.
I don't think I've ever said that before on this show. Okay, you started at Polly G's Slice Shop?
At the Slice Shop.
Okay, and did everyone meet you there, or did everyone meet in the city and take the trolley across the bridge?
So everybody met me. All like 30 of my friends met me at my apartment in Greenwich Village where the trolley was picking us up. They all helped me bring like a cooler with ice and like cups. And,
this is amazing.
And then we took the trolley into Greenpoint. My sister-in-law was ordering the pizza ahead of time. I created an Excel sheet ahead of time of like all of the places, what I wanted to order, how much it would cost, and like the route.
So you.
Yeah, it's too much.
No, it's not. It's good. I mean, listen, I have a whole company where we plan out days for people. I'm like, this is right up my alley.
Yeah. And it ended up being like the literal best day of my life. But
I love this.
And while we're on the trolley, like there is music blasting. I had like made a playlist. People are like drinking alcohol. We're taking photos. It's just like really cute and really fun. And it was like,
I can just see it.
All of my best friends, some of my family. And it was just like very adorable.
When you get the pizzas, are you picking them up and then bringing them back on the trolley and driving to the next spot? Or are you going inside with, okay. So you're eating on the trolley, driving around Brooklyn.
We're eating on the
having some drinks, some branded content, the whole kit. We're there. Okay. And then where's our second stop?
Second stop was at Aces in Williamsburg.
Okay.
Which is Detroit style pizza.
Little change up.
It was so good. It was so good. I had never been there before. And it ended up being my favorite, I think, of the day.
This is a bold move. Knowing what you've labeled yourself about pizza connoisseur, A, and B, type A lady also, to go in a second stop somewhere you've never been before. You put that much faith in it. But guess what?
It paid off. It came out piping hot. Everybody loved it. It was so good. It was the dark horse of the day.
Yeah, totally.
It was just such a great time. We did Aces. Then we went around the corner to L'Industrie, which is like my favorite slice shop. It just is. Like the burrata slice is A1, so good.
It's a very delicious pizza and also featured on this podcast and someone else's most fun New York City day. So if anyone's wondering if Lindustry or whatever is fun, I think we can confirm 2 for 2 now.
Yeah.
So you get a pie from there, your favorite pizza, you're having that one. Everyone at this point has got to be feeling a little good.
Yeah. Everybody's like drunk. We're on our 3rd stop for pizza. Then we went down to Carroll Gardens to F&F Pizzeria. By the time we got there, like people were KO'd. Like we were very full, very drunk. Everybody's like running off the trolley to go pee. It's like a whole thing. But it was great. It was like a great way to end the trolley. And then we looped back around back to the bottom of Greenwich Village where the trolley dropped us off at this bar called The Folly.
Oh, yes.
It's a Sunday. At this point, it's like 5 p.m. Everybody's like drunk as fuck, super full, like bloated as hell because we just had like 4 different kinds of pizza. And I had sent out like a separate invite to like all of my other friends who didn't make the like 30 people cut to get on the trolley or like who couldn't make the trolley. I was like, come meet us at the bar afterwards. And my parents came afterwards. They brought me a cake and some balloons and we popped some champagne. But like everybody was like KO'd by the time it was like 6, 7 p.m. People are like stumbling out drunk, so full. And that was the most fun I've ever had in New York City.
I have to tell you, I truly, like, my heart is so full right now of like hearing you be like, mid-20s, middle of the day, wasted. I know that feeling so deeply in my bones of like thinking about the bar crawls my friends and I would plan on like Sunday afternoons and when you just can't even see straight at 5:30, like, and to know that was your most fun day of all the time you spent in New York, born and raised here. I love it so much and it makes me so fucking joyful. And I think you have another, of course, this is you. What do we expect here? That you have another business model on your hands, like pizza, birthday party.
Oh my gosh.
Crawls.
The amount of people who have reached out to me after I made that video, the trolley company reached out to me. The owner like called me and he was like, you changed the trajectory of our business. He was like, this changed our entire business. He was like, I've never been so booked out. You like changed our lives. Like,
oh my God.
So glad that it benefited, like, especially a local business. And it's just cool to see like other people be inspired. And I was inspired by somebody who did it. Like, I can't claim this idea.
Yeah. And kudos to her. And that's wonderful. But right now you are the guest and you executed it swimmingly. So yes, it was a great idea. And maybe I'll cut this out, whatever. I don't know. But like the concept of people always being like, influencers are so annoying and like, whatever. We all feel that way at one point. Essentially, inadvertently, what you did was change this small business's life. And at the end of the day, what's so wrong with that? Like, they're appreciative and it's all based around, I don't know, if you were selling like cardigans, I'd probably be like, all right, cool. It was because people are having fun and going to local businesses in New York City and exploring and like hanging out with other people and getting drunk and eating pizza. I mean, it's like all of these. Why didn't I know you then?
I honestly,
if you do another one, please invite me.
I would love to do another one. It was like the best day ever. And yeah, a lot of really great things came out of it. It's such a good point. I think a lot of people get really annoyed at like influencers. It's a weird thing because I think we all, like you said, have that moment with influencers, especially like certain people and personalities and things like that, like very unlikable. Like I also understand that and I have felt that way. But there are people who are really doing amazing and good things for the community. And it might not seem that way, but it is true.
For me personally, if at the end of the day, it's getting people to have fun. I mean, I know that is like my brand, but it is the truth. If people are having fun, that's all that matters to me. And most importantly, your story is so fun, so New York. We've got the pizza element. You're having the best time with all of your friends. I'm so glad that is the one you chose and that happened and that hopefully I can spend a day with you like that sometime in the future.
I know, I might have to bring it back.
I have to ask you my last question of the show. What is your favorite thing about New York City?
New York is home. Like, this is where my family is. This is where my parents are. This is where I grew up. This is where my brother and sister-in-law live. It's the background to my entire life. And so, every corner has a memory, every place, every meal. I think that would be true for any place that somebody calls home, but I'm just lucky enough that it's New York City.
What a special treat for you that is what you get to have. And like I always say, we talk about all sorts of things that people love on this show. No one's ever said that. No one's put it like that. New York is your home. I have to imagine it's a tremendous part of your heart. You have all of your family here. You can really, truly feel it resonating from you of how much this place means to you. And I feel so lucky to have heard what you love about New York, the fun you have had in New York, all of your stories about New York. Thank you so much for being on the show and for telling that wonderful story. So good.
Thank you so much for having me. This was so fun.
Perfect. Most of all, thanks, New York. They had fun.